Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got 4 replays for you in the brand new Tech Tree Soviet Tier 8 double barrel heavy tank. That is a mouthful. The IS-2-II or the IS-2-II. Well, you know, it could go that way too. But yeah, the IS-2-II. It's a IS-2 that's up-tiered a little bit, so it's got a little bit better armor, and then it's got a double barrel. And it's got a double barrel that is, if you are stock, an 85mm, and if you're fully upgraded, a 100mm gun. So, what we're going to do with this video is this first replay is completely stock. Like, I've got no upgrades for this tank whatsoever in this replay. The second replay is the tracks and the engine, so you're seeing the upgrade in the mobility, but you're getting another game with this gun, or this stock gun package. And then the final 2 games are some nice games I've had while fully upgraded, just to show you how it sort of handles and stuff like that. And that way you'll know what you're getting into when you start grinding. This IS-2-II, so far, except for when it was stock, because to be honest it was pretty horrible when it was stock, has been quite fun. That's because the gun is really quite nice, like the accuracy, the way it feels like you're never not going to be fully aimed right. Because it just doesn't bloom out that much, just like the Object 703-II. The guns feel really nice. The DPM actually feels quite nice. It feels like you never really stop firing, and that is a lovely, lovely thing. The penetration isn't too bad for a Tier 8 heavy, even when stock, to be fair. And the mobility is quite nice as well. You can get it up to being quite decent with like traction system, powertrain, etc., etc. And so on the whole, as a package, it feels quite nice. When you get that fully upgraded turret, it can actually bounce shots while it's hull down. I would not trust the stock turret to save my life, because the stock turret is terrible. Same as the stock gun is actually, it fires a lot. It is pretty accurate, but on the whole it feels so underwhelming for a heavy tank at tier 8. Like I say, stock is pretty horrible. It can do bits when it's top tier, like you can actually do stuff with it when you're top tier, but when you're bottom tier, oh boy, it's really not good. Because the turret armor gets absolutely minced. You don't really have any alpha whatsoever. Your penetration is decent, but you just don't have the premium pen to deal with a lot of the tier 10s. And then also, you don't have any hull armor, right? And that's a problem throughout the whole of this tank, to be honest. The fact that you don't really have any hull armor. The hull armor gets absolutely trashed. You can ricochet shots because of angles and stuff like that, and you will ricochet a decent amount, but for the most part, your hull armor gets absolutely wrecked, and you will get set on fire through the front quite often as well, which can be frustrating. So realistically, this tank wants to be in a position where you can get hull down and just use the turret armor, accentuate the angles of the turret, because you do have 7 degrees of gun depression, which is lovely for a Soviet tank, and then you can farm away. Because if you're out in the open, your hull armor will get wrecked. You can side scrape with this tank, because you can do that, but you've got to be very, very careful, because the way that the hull is angled on the front is like the IS-2, its little cheeks end up being really weak when you do side scrape, so you really have to try and bait the shot on the back end of your tank and then shoot with the front, right? That's just what you got to try and do. But yeah, the stock grind, I mean, is any tier 8 stock grind nice? That's my question to you. I don't think it is really half the time, and yeah, it really does struggle quite a lot. So what do I run in terms of a crew on the IS-2-II, or the IS-2-II, or however you want to put it? I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Trap Mechanic, Rapid Aim. Rapid Aim to make the turret traverse better, so that I can basically get the turret to keep up with the hull, because the hull traverse is faster than the turret traverse, so I just want to make it so that it does kind of get up to that speed. All the gun perks, because I do want to try and make the gun as good as possible, especially since I don't run the stabilizer, and that will really help to make this gun feel really good, and it does feel really good with those gun perks. And something like Trap Mechanic, because I do get brawling and I want to be able to get my tracks back on as quickly as possible. And in terms of equipment, I run vents, the traction system, and optics. Vents and optics to make the view range as good as possible and make everything else about the tank as good as possible. And the traction system to get up to 37 kilometers an hour. Because this tank is blind, by the way. You can get up to 458 meters view range with this setup, which is not that great, and you do get outspotted a lot. In that first game, we ended up with 2.9k damage. The Confederate, the third class, 1252 base XP. That was actually a fairly average game for this tank in this matchup, and it was fully stock. You did get to see that, you know, the mobility is just a little bit sluggish. The gun handling is really good, and the 180 Alpha is just a little bit underwhelming. It really does feel that little bit underwhelming. Does that mean you can't do anything with this 180 Alpha? No, you can definitely do stuff with the 180 Alpha, just because your gun is non-stop firing, it's constant, but it just, because you are a heavy tank, feels so underwhelming. It really, really does. But you do have the ability to double shot when you need to, or when you can kill something, or when you know that you're not really going to have the chance to fire again at the tank before it just blows up, which is definitely a handy thing. Now, this stock gun is 180 Alpha, which is not great. You do have 212 pen with 238 premium, which again is actually pretty decent for a stock gun. A lot of stock guns at tier 8 tend to be like 175, 180, you know, in that range, and you sit there going, I can't do anything. 212 pen is not too bad. You can actually do stuff with that, which is, you know, okay. So the penetration is pretty okay. It's just the premium pen is a little bit lacking for when you are in those bottom tier matchups, and yeah, it can suffer just a wee bit in that regard. So yeah, in terms of the equipment, by the way, because I did gloss over that a little bit quickly, you can do multiple different things with this tank. Like, I run the vents because I want to just boost the view range. I mean, I go from 448 meters view range to 458 with the vents, so that extra 10 meters does count for quite a lot, which is why I run it. Plus, also, your DPM gets even better, and especially on this stock gun, it's nice to have that extra sort of little bits of reload that you can gain from it, because just the fact that your alpha damage is lacking. And then the traction system to get that 37 kilometers an hour, you can definitely do that. You do hit that 37 kilometers an hour on flat. Obviously, going up a hill and stuff like that, you don't quite do that. But yeah, you can reach that 37 kilometers an hour. And the optics, yeah, because like I say, you really need the optics. You are very blind, and there's a lot of situations where you just don't spot anything, which is very awkward, and they spot you. So you want to make sure that you can at least be able to spot the enemy team. But you could, if you wanted to, drop the vents quite easily and run the powertrain. And run the powertrain so that you could actually get up to 39 kilometers an hour, and you will hit that 39 kilometers an hour. So that's definitely something you could do. Or obviously, if the gun annoys you, just take off the vents and put on stabs, so that, you know, you can get the best out of the gun handling if you want. Or if you wanted to just go, you know, min-max, you could run advanced armor, and then run armor angling instead of something like rapid aim, so that you reduce the amount of damage coming into you by 10%. And that way you'd have more hit points to play with, because obviously you're reducing the amount of damage coming in. There's multiple different ways you can set up a tank, it's down to you. So yeah, this second replay, we do actually have the top engine, and we have the top tracks. So we actually are our most mobile in this game. And we have the top turret actually as well in this game, looking at as well. So our turret armor is now actually pretty good. But we still have the stock gun, which means, like I say, you can see we are firing very, very, very quickly. It just feels underwhelming because it's 180 Alpha, right? It's an 85mm gun. It just doesn't feel great at the tier. And it's, like I say, especially when you start to go against those tier 9s and tier 10s, yeah, it's not that nice. It's quite good when you get to, even, like, the top gun. The top gun is very, very nice. And even against tier 10s, having that 300 Alpha or that 600 Alpha burst, if you double tap, is quite nice. And the fact that you're, again, you just keep reloading really, really quickly is an asset for this tank. So we're on Berlin, and as you can see, we've just double tapped that SU-14-1 because I expected him to just blow up. So I decided, okay, I'm going to get the double tap out, and that way I can get as much damage out of that artillery as possible, because I felt like I was going to only get one chance to fire. And also, if I was to fire one and then fire again, more than likely he was actually going to get shot off at me, and I didn't want that. So we shot that guy down. We end up repairing our fuel tanks, because like I say, this thing is like a lot of the Soviet and Chinese-esque tanks, that it likes to burn, so you do have to be careful with shots through your lower plate, because it will burn, and trust me, it will burn. It likes to burn. So you've got to be very, very careful of that. If your fuel tanks get damaged, repair them. Please repair them so you don't burn. And we're going after this heavy tank and TD. It's an SU-101. This is where I really wish I had the Alpha. So we go after this SU-101. We go for the drive wheel to track and pen it. Unfortunately, we only do track damage. This man is now coming after us. We do get a shot into him, but the Mutz actually gets a shot into us from across that we didn't see. We snap a shot into the Mutz. He bounces off our extremely angled lower plate, and now this SU-101 is coming. I try and track him so that he can't get me, and again, the underwhelming alpha there means that I don't really have the module damage to track him first time, and at this point I think I'm dead, but thankfully he ends up mucking up the shot and we double tap him in the drive, well, in the side, and shut him down. We're up to 4 kills with 4,056 damage. We're having a really nice game, especially with this stock gun, and we're lucky again that we didn't die. I didn't think that VK was quite poking around the corner. I thought the heavy tank was pressuring him, and we got lucky that VK missed. The Mutz is still spotted at C1, and I thought maybe he's going to rush round to A3 and they'll kill me, but he is actually not making any moves at this point. Now he is, you can see on the map. We're going to try and get the double tap into the turret of the VK, which we get in. We didn't need to double tap in the end because he actually took a hit. But while we were actually going for the double tap and when we pulled the trigger, he actually still had enough hit points to get the double tap off. Again, that was one of those where I'm going to fire because I expect him to die, so I may as well try and get as much damage as possible. The Mutz has actually made that play, which is why we came up to these pillars here, so we could try and side scrape to not take damage. He ends up firing though, so I know I've got enough time. We pull around the corner, drop the double tap into him, pull back, and then we're going to wait for the reload. He's fired again, and I believe that I'm actually going to be able to fire quicker than he will. So we slap the shot into his upper plate, and we set him on fire as well, which is perfect, because we shut him down and finished with our 6th kill of the game. And we finished the game with the victory. 6 kills, 4,770 damage, 94 assistance. The top gun, the high caliber, the first class, because 2.1k base is the first class. Because naturally, if you wonder about that, the ace tanker requirements, just like the MOE requirements for the tank, on a brand new tank on its first day, are set to the best of the tier and class. So the ace tanker requirements for this tank, for example, the base XP requirements, will be the same as the highest ace tanker requirements of a tier 8 heavy tank, essentially. Don't know what that is, but 2.1k base clearly isn't enough to get the ace tanker there. But normally that would be an ace tanker. And that was a really nice game for having that stock 180 alpha gun. And like I said, that the whole point of that replay was to show that you can do stuff with the stock gun, but you have to have the matchmaking. If you are bottom tier, that gun is really, really not very nice. And you don't need to see it in a bottom tier matchup to know that that gun is not going to be very, very nice. 238 pen on the APCR is just not enough for most tier 10 tanks, and the thing is they absolutely rinse your stock turret armor, they absolutely rinse your hull armor, and to be honest, even the fully upgraded turret, they don't rinse it so much as they pen it probably 50% of the time. And then obviously if you go against tier 9, it's one of those, you go against the tier 9s that fire in premium and the tier 10s that fire in premium, they just absolutely butcher the poor turret armor. But you do have angles on the turret, so naturally you can ricochet. It's not like impossible to ricochet shots. It's just that, yeah, half the time they probably will just go straight through, because that's tier 8 problems realistically. But this game, we are fully upgraded, which is glorious. We're fully upgraded in the IS-2-II, so we actually have the top engine, we have the top tracks, we have the top turret, and now we have the top 100mm gun, which has 221 penetration on its standard AP, and 256 penetration on its premium APCR, which 221 pen is fine for a tier 8, and 256 pen on the premium APCR is good enough. You can deal with a lot of the tier 10s with that. What you're going to struggle with is a lot of the super heavy tier 8s, like tier 10s, sorry, like, you know, Mouse, Type 5, etc, etc. You're really not going to be able to do anything to those guys because you don't really have the pen. But again, that's just another tier 8 problem realistically. So we're on this map, and this map is Kasserine. And on Kasserine, we've come to this position here on these spawns at D3, because I do like to come here because you can get hull down, you can spot across the one line as they push, and you can get shots into them as they do cross up, or they get high up on that little ridge line where the rocks is on the right hand side. You can just see in your picture. That way you can stay hull down, you can use just your turret armor, and you can use the 7 degrees gun oppression that this tank gets to pretty nice effect. You do have to watch out from that position though, because artillery does like that position to fire at, but it is what it is. We pop over on the Panther 2, we go for the double barrel, because once again, I feel like I'm gonna get the ability to get 2 shots into him. If I was to put 1 shot into him, more than likely he's going to turn around and blap me with his big gun, and I don't want that. So we end up putting the double shot into him and tracking him in place so that we could get back behind cover, and we did like 600 damage to, well, 650 damage was it to him, something like that, which is a good slab of hit points. The TD that was firing at us from the ridge at F6 ends up missing, which I expected that guy to be there. He ends up pulling back behind the cover, so I can't quite get a shot at him. So that now I'm going to decide, okay, I'm going to go after this Panther 2. We go for the shot into the Jagdpanther 2, his lower plate. And naturally, RNG says no, and we end up hitting his tracks only. Sad times. Now we've got a KV-3, we put a shot into his side, we take a big hit there from what was probably that Yahtzee going back into that position, but now we're going to get out of the way of where that Yahtzee can shoot. We've got this SU-152 in front of us, we put a shot straight through his lower plate, and now we've reloaded again, we pop the shot straight through his superstructure. This is what I mean about this double barrel, it's really quite nice, you really feel like you're non-stop action firing, which is definitely a glorious thing. We're now going for a shot into the Super Hellcat, and that was a really bad shot. We should have led that so much better than we did. We just let that Super Hellcat get away there. Because the max ammo speed on this gun is 980 meters a second on the standard rounds. The APCR is 1250 though, so the 1250 APCR velocity is very, very nice. But with the 980 velocity, we really did have to lead that better against that Hellcat, and he managed to get away because he was moving. So now we're going to have to go put pressure up on the two artilleries, and we know the Hellcat was in a position, so I decided, okay, you know what, I'm not going to push straight across where I was going to go, I'm actually going to push across this way where the KV-3 is gone, so that I can stay safe from the Hellcat, and that way I can get to a position where I can maybe get shots into the artillery without taking a hit myself. So we put a double tap into the Lorraine 15551, which puts him in the range for the KV-3 to finish off, which he does. Now there's the GW Panther gets shut down by the S-51, which means that there's just the Super Hellcat. The Super Hellcat fires at us without getting spotted. The other TD's in the distance against most of our team, so I know I'm not going to get shot by him. I know where that Super Hellcat is. I'm just baiting myself here. You can see I'm waiting. I'm like, I know you're there somewhere. Shoot me, bro. There we go. We popped the shot on the move, and we shut him down. It was all a case of, shoot me. Come on. I know you're there. Devalue your camo. Fire. And that's exactly what happened, and he ended up getting himself spotted and shut down. Finished the game with 3 kills, 3.7k damage, 1,058 assistance, the high caliber, the second class, 1,602 base XP. A pretty decent game there for the tank with that 100mm gun. Now we're on to the fourth and final replay, and this one is bottom tier. We're against tier 10s. We have the fully upgraded package again in this replay, and we're on Kaunas. And on Kaunas, we are going to go to this middle area at F7, because that way I can basically shoot people as they cross along the JK line, and I can actually progress into the middle and shoot people in the middle, or I can go and attack the guys that are on that K line. There's multiple different options I can do from this position. I'm not really a fan of attacking where D3 is from our spawn, because they get much better positions than we do. So now we're in a position where we can see basically that cross, we can see the guys in the middle, but unfortunately, we are not good enough in terms of our view range. This is where we suffer a bit to be able to actually see those guys in the distance that cross, so we ended up not being able to see anyone. Now we see the T100LT and we see the IS-2-II, but they're in a position where it's just making it awkward. We can't quite get the shot at that guy, so we are just looking to see if we can get any shots at these guys, but I can't see them. So I decided to go into the middle, because this way I can try and get some shots and put some pressure on the 5A and the Centurion. So we go for the double tap on the Centurion, because I was hoping maybe I'd high roll, or, well, I just felt like if I fired the single shot, I'd be telling him, hey, Centurion, hello, I'm here. And that way he would get away, and that wouldn't be good. We're just looking for the shot into the turret there of the 5A, but we unfortunately miss. And now I can see again, I can see this WZ-5A's turret, but I'm thinking, you know what? I might be able to kill him if I high roll with a double tap. So we're waiting for the double tap. He gets tracked and hit by the artillery, which means it's a guaranteed kill, and we shut down the 5A with the double tap there. Remember, if you're using your double barrel, you need to press left on the D-pad to be able to activate the mode to fire 2 shots at once. So you press left on the D-pad, okay? That's how you activate it, just like any other special mode. And once again, that's where the double tap is very, very nice. That IS-2-II was a 2-shot, but if we activated the double barrel, and as long as the shots both hit, he was a 1-shot, and we ended up shutting that guy down for our second kill of the game, 1,600 damage, and yeah, there's 3 guys in the distance still. Well, I've made that 2 now. There's still 2 IS-2-IIs, and they're against that heavy tank, but we do have quite a few of our team at G9, so I was quite confident that they'd go in and help. Now we're against the ISM. I go for the double shot into that guy's lower plate. We only hit 1 though for 335. And yeah, that's one of those cases. You don't always hit both double barrels. It's separate RNG for each shell on a double barrel tank. So you can actually pen 1 shot of the double barrel and bounce the other. So we go for the shot into the lower plate of that IS-2-II, and I was thinking, oh no, he's going to farm a load of my hit points. But nope, 4005 says no, as it absolutely wrecks that poor guy. He ends up losing a lot of hit points there and gets shut down. Now we're against one of our other Soviet compatriots. We go for the double tap into his lower plate again, and therefore we actually pen both of those shots and put him down to 328 hit points. Once again, he was getting shot at by the TDs and by the light tank and heavy tanks, and I thought maybe he was going to die. So I just wanted to get both pens. We go for the shot into his lower plate again, but unfortunately it was quite well angled, and it ends up bouncing, so we don't quite get the kill on that guy. But we're up to 2.8k damage, and then it's like, oh no, that's a 4005. We go for the double tap, and thankfully the dead wreck in front of me takes the shot from the 4005. We know that the Terran's fired now, because we've just seen the shell fly. Just waiting to see if I could get a shot into the 4005, but I can't. The reason we double tap that 4005 is, once again, he's got a big gun. So what I want to do is drop the double tap into him, do the 600 damage, because we're whittling him down that way. We're only exposing ourselves for very little time against him, and therefore we can double tap and then disappear while we wait for our reload, and then hopefully he will forget about us while we are reloading, and then we can do it all again in about 12 seconds. That's the realistic way I was playing it. I wasn't wanting to put 300 alpha into him, wait for the reload, 300 alpha, because it was giving him more opportunities to just slap us with either the Hesh or with the really ridiculous AP that a 4005 gets on that 183mm gun. So it was taking every opportunity to reduce the ability for him to shoot at us and maximise our damage against him. That's the way you've got to think about it with this double barrel sometimes, is that if you are playing against a tank with higher alpha and you know you can pen it guaranteed like a 4005 with a double shot, you're best to just double tap and then pull back and wait for the reload, unless if you're in a situation like that where you can pull back and get safe. If obviously you can't get safe, you might be best just to keep your DPM and keep firing non-stop instead of using your double tap and having that cooldown period afterwards. So we're using the double tap here so we can get a shot into this object 261. We end up firing both shots into him, pull back so that we get away from him. It's like, no, don't kill me. And he's fired now. He's taking a shot from the other IS-2-II. We're waiting for the reload, and we get to shut him down. And it's like, goodbye, piggy. And that was our third kill of the game, 4,700 damage, and the other tank got shut down. So we finished with the victory, 3 kills, 4.7k damage, 860 blocked. The first class, 1991 base XP, a pretty damn nice game there for the IS-2-II in a pretty bad matchup. But yeah, for the start of the double barrels for the tech tree, it's not too bad. You've just got to know that your limitation is your hull armor is really not very good, and that your stock gun is really not very nice either when you are not top tier. And then you'll have a pretty good time. Most of the time, you want to use your pretty decent mobility to get to a spot, get hull down, use the turret armor, and then just keep pummeling out the damage, because it is a very consistent damage dealer, and it is quite nice for that. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!